Let's talk about why you're getting so many crawled, not indexed in Google Search Console and what you can do about it. This Reddit user posts, I was hoping someone would be able to help me. I have a client website that has hundreds of these links that are in the crawled, not indexed state inside their Google Search Console. Does anyone know if this has a negative impact on SEO performance? And if so, how should I rectify this? Thanks in advance. So what this user is describing is inside of their Google Search Console, if they come over here on the left to pages under indexing, they get to this report and they see down here, crawled dash currently not indexed. And this means that Google has crawled the page, they've digested it and they know about it, but they decided they weren't going to index it to ultimately show it to users. And this is not uncommon. It's not uncommon for sites to have a few pages in here at all times, even well-established sites. But when it really becomes a problem, particularly as a site owner or someone working on a site, is when the percentage or the proportion of crawled not indexed pages to total pages is incredibly high. And a lot of the pages on the site are simply not indexed. So let's go back to this post here. And first of all, I will address, does anyone know if this has a negative impact on SEO performance? And my take is that no, it doesn't directly have a negative impact on SEO performance, but it is an indicator that there's a lot you need to do on your site to ultimately get your traffic to improve. So let's talk a little bit about what you can do to get these pages indexed, right? And to have a lot of pages indexed and to reduce the number of pages that are in this crawled not indexed state. Now, I'm going to explain through a list of things, but it's important to understand that in the big overall picture, what having these pages as crawled not indexed is telling you is that simply Google does not see your content and your site as valuable enough to be indexed and served to its users. So keep that in mind. Everything is happening and everything I'm going to cover is within the context of that. First thing, quality content. You need high quality content that Google crawls and determines is good enough and worthy to be indexed and served to their users. If you're out there and you're creating ChatGPT content, no secret, that probably is not high enough quality. And if Google can detect that, it's not going to want to serve that to its users. Now, you might say, but Corey, there's so many sites out there that are serving ChatGPT and getting indexed and ultimately ranking well. And yes, I do know that to be the case. But number one, I believe that Google is trying to filter them out. And B, the sites that are getting indexed and ranked likely have other factors that Google is weighting or considering in their weighting of the content that they're crawling and indexing. And you'll see how that kind of plays into things here as I work through the list. But as a starting point, you gotta have high quality content on your site that people are actually going to find helpful and insightful. My position behind it is that if you're publishing content on your site, it has to be something that you would be proud to put your name behind and say, yes, I wrote this, go take a look at it. And a lot of what ChatGPT puts out is not that level. I know because I play with ChatGPT all the time and I'm consistently disappointed. Yes, it puts out stuff, content writing that is technically correct and grammatically correct as well. But anybody with slight subject matter expertise is going to take one look at it, just skim it and be like, this is garbage. Okay. So that's what you have to consider. High quality content, number one. If you're getting a lot of these pages crawled not indexed, you really need to review your content and make sure that it is indeed high quality. Going on from there, you have to make sure that you have or you don't have too much content relative to the brand value that your website has, right? So consider this, a site that pops up and is pretty new, just a couple months old, and has 1,000 articles published. Google's going to take one look at that and be like, wow, they've got all this content here, but there's no brand. Nobody is searching out their brand directly. There's nothing else going on with this site or their content. It can't possibly be natural or worthy of being shown. So if you have a ton of content and you've tried to take that approach that was popular 4 or 5 years ago of just publishing a bunch of content and dumping it out there, and Subsequently, that was often low quality content, hence I'm sure Google has caught on to that, and that's why they're doing so much as crawled not indexed. It would probably be wise to trim your content up. And that's going to segue us into the next section because that kind of ties it all together. And this is topical relevance, right? You want to have content that is all intertwined, topically relevant, and comprehensively covers a topic. Not just a bunch of content that is out there to satisfy this big list of keywords. So my approach and how I'm publishing content now and going forward, and it's working quite well over the last year or two, is I publish a blog post, and then I review that blog post, and I look for opportunities to create new content that we can link to from it. So I'm reading the blog post, and whenever I think there's an opportunity to say, oh, we should elaborate on that further, I have that topic authored, and then we publish it, and then we go back to that original post and we link to it from that post. So we have lots of natural internal links on content that is all topically relevant, right? And I've done this now on a site that is getting traffic that I have. We've published about 100 blog posts over the last year, and it has been stable and growing. It doesn't have hockey stick growth that you would, want to show off or anything, but it's stable and growing. And I have not considered keyword research at all. It's all about topical relevancy. And mind you, we're publishing on topics that have good search traffic. So we've got that going on. But overall, we're not worried about keywords. It's all about building topical relevance. So going back to the beginning, have high quality content, right? Make sure you don't have too much of it and make sure it's all topically relevant. So if you've got a site out there with a bunch of, content on it, maybe just temporarily unpublish some of the content that is not too relevant so that you can narrow it down to a topical relevancy kind of point where everything is nice and concise, and then make sure that quality is high before you come back and start working on the other content and publishing other silos of content that are not so topically relevant. I think topical relevance and covering things comprehensively, irregardless of just publishing to satisfy search intent, is very important because Google can tell when your site is just publishing a bunch of blog posts, each targeting one keyword. And I think what they want you to do, and certainly what seems more natural and what is better for the user, is to comprehensively cover a topic and everything a user could want to know about that topic. That's going to build that topical relevance. Okay, next thing. Social signals in branding. I've already mentioned the brand value here, right? If a site has a ton of pages but no brand value and subsequently no social signals, does that seem natural to you? To me, it does not. A site that is high quality is going to have, and growing naturally, not just trying to manipulate search engines, is going to have social signals and people seeking out the brand directly. So focus on driving traffic to your site through social and sharing that content and getting real users to interact with the content. Don't wait for Google to serve you users because that may never happen. Google's instead going to look at getting real users onto the site. I think there's a lot to be said for that. And that will segue into the next point. That is, in some cases, run paid social traffic to the site. I have seen very good success in doing this. And that is, if we have a good piece of content that we think can rank for something, just setting it up as a Facebook ad and running $5 a day in traffic to it. And usually what I'll do, this is some next level stuff here, but what I'll do is inside that piece of content, I'll make sure that we have a lead magnet or something where the user has to engage with the content, i.e. put in their information and click a button to get it, right? And we will run for conversions on that lead magnet. So now we're not just sending traffic to that page, but we're sending them traffic to that page, optimizing for an event that is forced, or not forced, but that requires the user to engage with the page. And now Google is getting all of that user data through their Chrome browser. We know from the Google leak documents a few months ago that Google is indeed using that Chrome browser data and user behavior as a ranking factor. So when you send the real users to the page and they engage with the page, Google's going to pick that up. I've been saying that for years, and people tell me, no, I'm wrong. Google says that they're not using actual user behavior. And I'm like, look, Google is running or owns these properties that can perfectly measure user data. They've got Google Analytics, they've got Chrome browser. I think you'd be naive if they are not actually using them in their rankings. And it turns out they were. We found that out with the leaked search documents. And finally, there are backlinks. Backlinks are like a vote of trust from another website that hopefully has some authority, and they say, hey, this content is good enough for us to link to, right? And search engines follow that, and in theory, these backlinks pass link juice, and that is the authoritative properties of another site in that vote of confidence, and that increases the authority of your website. Subsequently, Google is more inclined to index your content. Now, that said, backlinks are not probably, but are my least favorite thing to work with in the SEO world, right? It's no secret there's still a ranking factor, but I don't believe it is nearly a significant ranking factor or nearly as significant of a ranking factor as they were 5 years ago or anything like that, right? It used to be you got backlinks, boom, you'd go right to the top of search engines. Now, we're seeing that substantially diminish, and I believe that's because A, backlinks can be manipulated, and B, user interactions, user social interactions and social shares and stuff can't be manipulated nearly as easy. But with that, C, Google can also now easily detect the user interactions as I just discussed. So I really don't focus at all, or I don't focus at all. I don't do any work with backlink building at this point. But that said, getting links, if you're one of those link building type of people or you wanted to engage in those campaigns, would certainly help your content get indexed. Now, personally speaking, just going into my anti-backlink building, I prefer just to run paid ads to content to get the real user signals, because you can actually measure what you're getting. You know how many clicks people are making to your site. You're getting real users to your site. You're getting real users to engage with your content. Maybe, as I described in my scenario, getting content or getting users onto your lead magnet content, right? So you get so much better benefit from that. And I think it's much easier and much higher returning for me just to run paid social ads to get my content indexed and to get users into it and to get Google to recognize it than it is to go out and start trying to build backlinks organically by doing outreach. For what that's worth, very fruitless task, and usually just doing outreach leads you to people that will sell links on their site, and then you ultimately have to pay for them anyways. So I'm not a big backlink person. That said, though, in my experience here in winding down, just having high quality, topically relevant content and doing a little bit of organic social so that your brand has an organic social footprint will solve your crawled, not indexed problem. On that note, guys, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I hope you found this video helpful and insightful. If you did, you know the drill. Smash that like button to help me out in the YouTube algorithm. I'm calling it a wrap and signing off on that note.